Welcome, everybody, to another amazing session. And I can say that confidently because they've all been amazing so far. And the best way to predict future behavior is looking at past behavior. And we are like 13 for 13 by now. So, welcome, everybody, to another session of the Salesforce Trailblazer Community Group on Salesforce Business Analysts, this virtual. I always forget our name. It's like something a few of those words, and that's the name of the group. And you're here, and we're here, and we're going to talk about driving Salesforce adoption through user-centric design today. And I'm still going to have the same challenge that I run into every month where I can't change the slide. I click, and then nothing happens. All right. Housekeeping items. The meeting is recorded, including all of my bad jokes, including all of sometimes if you have a funny face or something, that might end up on the YouTube. But I will chop off the front and the end. And if anything super weird happens in the middle, then I will spend a little extra time editing. But for the most part, expect that if you are on camera and doing something weird, it might end up on the internet. But I do encourage everybody to be on camera because I do love seeing all of your faces every month. As for the chat, please don't spam the chat. Like, don't start trying to sell stuff or, I don't know, being weird. But I like keeping the chat lively. If you've got some good jokes, if you've got commentary, if you've got experience to share, please share it in the chat. If you want to speak, I would encourage you guys to raise your hands. But generally, we let our speakers speak first, and then we'll have some more Q&A afterwards, and we can open it up. But I do like to give everybody at least the power, but with great power comes great responsibilities. So please make sure that you are unmuting purposefully and unrudely. Is that a word? I don't know. Anyway, the Q&A is for questions. I will turn on the Q&A now. So if you have any questions, even about the house rules, you can feel free to throw them in the Q&A. If you throw Q&A into the chat, I can't promise that I will scroll fast enough to get to it. And keep an eye on pin posts at the top. We try and put any good comments or links on the pinned post at the top. Okay. Next, our agenda. Introductions. Who's this person? All these rules. Ugh. Mom. All right. Then we're going to talk about driving Salesforce adoption through user-centric design. Richard, I assume you're good for Q&A. I totally assumed. I know it's late, but if you could stay.
Of course. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, good. My assumptions were on point. Then we'll have some BABA news and opportunities. BABA stands for Badass BA, in case anybody is new. And then we'll have some BABA chit chat. Unrecorded BABA chit chat. I don't have one this time. I actually did something cool, and I joined not like a full-time. I'm still doing my own thing, Vanessa Grant LLC. Woo. But I joined Maple DX as a lead consultant. So I'm doing a bunch of work through them. Now I can offer some end-to-end services. I'm working with Melissa Shepard and Ginny Marquardt, which is pretty awesome. People keep referring to us as the Powerpuff Girls because I've got the dark hair, Melissa's got the blonde hair, and Janine's got the red hair. I don't know, that just kind of worked out. But I've been an independent Badass BA and consultant now for a year. It's my year anniversary of working on my own and starting my own thing. But I have over 15 years of experience at Salesforce, and I've done a whole bunch of stuff in this community. But this is one of my favorite things, is hosting this every month with pay. Speaking of pay, you're on mute, though.
Hello, I worked out the mute button. This is me. You didn't put the last book up there, but yes, I don't like talking about me, but
you mean this book?
That book, yes.
The one I just purchased on Amazon?
Oh. Ooh. Yes, that's the book. Thank you. Yes, so I've done lots of project delivery. I've done lots of stuff, and that's kind of my passion, talking about how to deliver projects well. Just a new announcement. Just today, I have published the Kindle version of Discovery. So I know a lot of people have been asking about that. I finally got around to doing that, and then at some point I will do the audiobook as well for it, and for all of them. It's on my big to-do list. So I'm just going to say that's that. I'm going to move on to Richard.
Actually, I did have a slide for your book. So, because I have the and ellipses over there just because I was like, you know what, it's still a big deal. Except I switched new to newish.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you.
Pay's new book available. I've recently purchased it. It is wonderful. Richard, I'm sure you have a larger intro, but if you want to give us the
We can just
Baba
give the
version.
larger intro now, so we can just get into the
All right.
presentation later. Hi, everyone. For those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Richard, and I work at a fintech company in London called Lendinvest as a senior Salesforce admin. And I'm talking about design in a BA group today. Why am I doing that? Because, we all design, and I was fortunate enough during my career in the past 5 years that I get to wear many, many hats, across the ecosystem. So, as admins, we all design, we all BA at one point, we all own products, etc., etc. So that's why I'm here today. But in another life, I was a mentor, a client success manager, social worker, even a recruiter at one point. So if you want to talk about how to change your career, you can do it. You just have to, wanting to do it, I guess. Yeah.
And I will say BA skills certainly travel well.
Oh yeah, 100%. And soft skills as well. A lot of that I done in sort of like social work, where I will talk about empathy. For me, those are all coming, from there. Those soft skills you carry on with you.
Yeah. All right. This is where I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to stop sharing. Yes, going to stop sharing. And we will have our. Oh, hold on. Where? I see Richard. I see Pay. I'm going to take a quick picture. Hold on. Hold that pose.
Oh.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I always forget. Thanks.
Cool. So there you go. I have just introduced myself, so I'm not going to do it again. Let's just dive into the agenda for the session I have got for you today. First, I'm going to talk about user experience, and then we move on to design thinking versus user-centered design, and what are these methodologies mean for us, and specifically BAs. Then I'm going to show you some real life examples of Salesforce UX or UI in action, using the Salesforce design system, Salesforce Lightning design system, and also Salesforce's platform native features. You can think of this section almost as a demo jam of Salesforce's features when it comes to design. Then we're going to look at a few tools that we can use to empower our users, for example. And then in the end, we're going to jump into Q&A. But, as we go along, as Vanessa mentioned, just feel free to write down your questions whenever you are there, because you might forget towards the end. So we can make sure we can get to you. So user experience, and why does user experience matter at all? Well, first of all, it drives user adoption and satisfaction. A solution can be technically really sound, but it only works if people actually use it. And even the best system fail without a good user experience. For a BA, this means that requirements we gathered and the solutions we have helped to build actually deliver on their intended purpose. This, in return, could reduce project risk. Catching usability issues very early on in the process is cheaper than fixing them later. User UX first approach would prevent costly reworks, support tickets, and endless change requests. It would also boost your return of investment. A system or a process that is easy to use will increase productivity for your users and reduce the need for extensive training and, again, support. User experience, therefore, directly impact the bottom line, making it a critical business strategy, in my opinion. And building solution that people love, where you take user experience beyond just functionality, is when you use solutions that just feel smooth and delightful, and your users are happier and projects are more successful, right now and in the future that you're going to deliver. And it also fuels innovation. The core of innovation isn't just about coming up with new features, it's about solving problems in new and effective ways. And this is where user-centered design and design thinking can provide the framework to do this by moving beyond our own assumptions and focusing on the actual needs of the people that we are building for. And as BAs, our skills are natural fit for this process. So let's take a look at user-centered design first. And as the name suggests, this is a design methodology which puts user needs at the heart of the process, with the goal of creating products which make your users' lives easier. This process is using cycles of iteration to continually incorporate user feedback. And now let's have a look at these core stages that is the linear user-centered design process. First, you would understand the user and their context of use. Then you would specify the user requirements and agree which areas should be addressed and the benefit of doing so to the user themselves. Then you would create a solution to meet these needs. And then you would evaluate against the requirements. Now, that's all good on paper, but let's take a real-life example of a successful application of a user-centered design by going into your kitchen, believe it or not, to your cupboard or your fridge. Heinz, we all know what the classic Heinz tomato ketchup glass bottle looks like, don't we? I also bet if you ever use this bottle, you remember the struggle of doing this. As lovely as it looks, and I am one of the advocates and the believers that ketchup from a glass bottle tastes better. It's a nightmare to get the sauce out, especially when you have got a tiny little bit left on the bottom. But behold, Heinz have observed and listened to their users, and here comes the plastic squeezable ketchup bottle. This change reveals a lot about the importance of user research and how important it is to make changes based on what you actually observe your users do. We have good UI, we have good UX. Problem solved, right? Well, wrong. Because back to the importance of user observation, what was found that to enable the sauce to get squeezed out easy, the bottle was being stored upside down. But because the bottle wasn't designed to be stored upside down, it would tip over. And, the label is also upside down, so it's really hard to read. So again, what Heinz did, from this observation came a second huge change for them, that they upgraded their design yet again to make sure they gave their customers the best user experience possible. They widened the caps, so to avoid it tipping over, turned the bottle upside down, and kept the labels the right way up to ensure the customers could read it much easier. So next time someone tells you that user experience, UI, or user research are not important, just talk to them about ketchup. Now let's take a look at design thinking. Design thinking is a non-linear, iterative process that is designed to solve especially complex problems in various innovative ways. And it does this through by very similar to what we just talked about, on understanding users, challenging our own assumptions, and focusing heavily on iteration and testing. The design thinking process has got 5 steps, however. The first of them would be to empathize, where you would gain a deep knowledge and understanding of the issue by interacting with those who are affected by them. Then you would define and analyze the knowledge gained through your previous research, to what the problem is. Then you would ideate. At this stage, involves extensive brainstorming for solutions. Then you would prototype, and then you would test your prototypes with your end users, gathering their feedback in order to iterate or improve on the design. But as I have mentioned earlier, this is actually a non-linear process, so you are free to follow these steps in an order which suits you. For example, as you can see on the screen, from empathize, we could go to prototype if you think this might help you in a given situation. And just like user-centered design thinking isn't a one and done process either. It's an iterative cycle. And for example, Nike used this to design, a shoe. They have iterated 192 times before they release their final product. That's why it's a really highly iterative cycle. And as BAs, how works also doesn't stop once a solution is built and released to production. We need to continuously observe and improve. So now let's take a real life example of a successful application of design thinking. Airbnb. Now, they started out as Airbnb and breakfast in 2009, and they only made around $200 a week. And after some observation, they were open for about 8 months. The founders recognized that the advertising pictures that the hosts were posting online were really bad, which often deterred customers from renting, the rooms. So to empathize with customers, what the founders did is that they spent time traveling to each location in New York City, imagining what users looked for in a temporary place to stay. What was their solution? They invested in a high-quality camera, and they took pictures of what customers wanted to see based on their own travel observations. For example, showing every room rather than just a select few, and highlighting the neighborhood itself or areas that were close proximity, to the residents. The result was a week later, after they uploaded these new pictures, they have doubled their revenue from $200 to $400. But for them, this was the very first time they saw any sort of growth. And, since then, the rest is history. And so what they did here is, instead of focusing on reaching a bigger audience, Airbnb's founders used design thinking to determine why their existing audience wasn't utilizing their services. And they realized that rather than focusing on traditional business values like scalability, they needed to put simply themselves in the user's shoes to solve business problems. And this experience just proved that tech and code alone can't solve every problem that our users have. While computers are very powerful, but there's only so much that software alone can achieve. If you would like to learn more about design thinking and especially enterprise design thinking, I have included a free course from IBM as part of the resources, which you will be able to get at the end of the presentation. Now, let's just quickly compare user-centered design and design thinking. If they sound similar to you, that's because they really are. Whilst obviously they have some core differences, they share some processes and steps and the general mindset, each placing emphasis, empathy, problem solving, iteration, and collaboration. However, what differentiates design thinking is its application to complex or something called wicked problems. A wicked problem is not an evil problem, but it's usually a problem is called a wicked problem if there is actually no way to solve it, or if you try to solve it, you end up creating more problems by trying to solve the problem that you were looking for. But that's what design thinking is good for. And its greater focus is on feasibility, desirability, and viability for the business and your existing tech stack. By contrast, user-centered design is focused primarily on addressing your user needs and wants. Now, if you go down the rabbit hole of like Reddit and forums and all of that, trying to compare these two in software, many people argue that they pretty much the same in practice, because both put the end user at the heart of the process and they follow a similar cycle. In any other word, whether you call it design thinking or user-centered design, I'm 100% sure you have used some of these previously, even without knowing. But what you're essentially doing is you're applying a user-centered approach to make technology work for people. Another really good example I have for you, if you're still not sure which one means what, design thinking. Think of Apple's operating system for their phones. iOS 26 is about to come out in like 2 months or so. iOS 16 itself is the design thinking, and Apple changing the icon of your settings or your camera on your phone's home screen, that is user-centered design. Okay, so you can also apply the two together, and that's what, for example, Apple likes to do. And with that, let's take a look on what's in a BA's toolkit on each stage in each process together. So on the very first, we understood earlier that if the understand and the empathize stage, here a BA could and would do user interviews, shadowing, empathy maps. If you want to drill, down to something in design thinking, because sometimes in design thinking, because you are trying to solve complex problems, sometimes the users cannot even tell you what the problem is, like the problem is that complex. The next stage, where you specify and define, would be where you come up with your problem statement. You analyze your research that we have just found out from the previous stage. You maybe create some diagrams, and we move on to ideate, where we go on to workshops, brainstorming with your team, and using brainstorming techniques such as the Crazy Eights, where everyone has got 8 pieces of paper in front of them, and you have got 8 minutes to come up with 8 different things to the following problem, let's say. After that, you can create your prototypes. It doesn't need to be a working prototype. Sometimes it is, again, depending on your own use case. But sometimes it's just a piece of paper, or what Vanessa said a few months ago when she took a bunch of Post-it notes to a client discovery session. Post-its on a wall, prototypes, just do something with your user. Or if you want to take it to the computer, you want to do mockups, Figma is a great tool. Or, Confluence, any whiteboarding software would do for a prototype for the very first time. And then you would run that past to your users. And down the line, this is where your UAT testing would be. This is where your A/B test could be. And your A/B test, A and B testing just could be by a user looking at, Post-it notes on a wall. Which group would you like better? That's A/B testing as well. And of course, surveys. But no matter what sort of tools you use, no matter how many times you're going to iterate, the end result of this process is always going to be that you have got your minimum viable product. And then the process is going to start again, and design thinking can become design doing. As such, yeah, and as as I said earlier, as BAs, it never really and never truly stops. So, but you can grab a few tools from here. You can grab, a whole idea of design thinking. You can take the whole toolkit with you in the future to try it out. But the one thing that I would like to take away, if you can't anything else from this, is that we all have assumptions. We will always have our own assumptions. We cannot find them. We are human. What you need to do is grab your assumption and realize that you have got assumption and put it up on the board as a question. And after you have done your research, try your problems against your own assumption. And that is sort of like the best way to address our own faults, because, as I said, we're all human. So we talked about the theory of design thinking, user-centered design, and designing for the user experience. So let's have a look what that would look like in practice, especially on the Salesforce platform. I'm going to show you specific UX and UI best practices and real-world examples of what good design looks like on Salesforce. And that Vanessa has mentioned on LinkedIn, and I really liked what you have said there of, not every company has got the money to have a designer. And even if they do, even if companies do have a designer, they often work on outward-facing platforms rather than your internal Salesforce experience. And this is why I'm so happy that I get to, speak at user groups like this, because if we can advocate for a really good internal Salesforce design as BAs, as admins, as developers, we're going to create much better experiences for our internal users as well. So we can maximize our internal projects as well, maximize our adoption there too. So let's just dive right in with Lightning Design System 2. Actually, I have read it today in Winter 26 release notes that is finally going to become GA. It was released in Spring 24 for the very first time. And since then it was in beta, but very shortly in this winter release, Salesforce Lightning Design System 2 is going to be generally available. And, innovation in the Salesforce ecosystem can take many forms. This is, one of them. And with Agentforce being a really hot topic, so is the overall user experience around AI and the dynamic UI needs of generative AI experiences. And that's what SLDS2 was designed for. but also it takes accessibility to a whole new level. So even if you don't tend to touch Agentforce in your particular project, I would still check SLDS2 out, and especially for your internal-facing users, the Salesforce Cosmos theme that is called in setup. Just because of the accessibility is so much better than what it is in Salesforce Lightning Design System 1. Now, for the rest of my presentation, you're going to see Lightning Design System 2, but the same principles and the color theory I'm going to talk about is going to be the same for Lightning Design System 1 as well. I just wanted to make that clear. Now, let's have a look at what we can do for our users on Lightning pages. Now, we all heard about dynamic format by now, I'm sure 75 times this month alone, but I just wanted to talk about some of my favorite features that would help our users reducing clicks or the distance that their mouse is moving on their desk and on their screen. You will see a pattern that I built out here. I'm all about reducing clicks, and I'm all about reducing the distance that our users have to navigate on their screens. The very first one would be conditional field formatting on Lightning pages, on dynamic form enabled Lightning pages. And as you can see, what I have done here after creating a rule set, which could be anything that you would like, I could apply a happy emoji, a green colored happy emoji next to the amount, because it's really close to 250,000, which is really good. But in a similar fashion, you could use this to give users an indication of anything that outliers. If the data is incomplete on an account, maybe just put something there so they don't have to fish for information. Which field do I have to fill out? What is missing here? Show them, bring them to it if you have got a chance. Another favorite of mine, this is pretty recent as well, is going to be about cross-object fields. This just means that you can drill into lookup relationship fields on dynamic form-enabled pages in the Lightning App Builder and access fields from related objects. Now, these fields that you pull in from related records, they won't be editable in runtime, but it can still be considered useful, saving our users some precious clicks. And you can see here, I brought in the account number from the account object. So if my user is on the opportunity, but they want to know the account number, I just save the click and maybe a bit of a scroll on the next page. One Google Chrome tab at a time. We are saving the world. Let's go on to the next one. This is actually one of my favorites, just because sometimes it's about making things look good, and I really like this change. But again, I have to put my own assumptions behind me, and first I would validate this with my users before I would enable any change, of course. But what aligning fields horizontally means, you can see the two examples here. Where's my mouse? There you go. So I have got it turned off here, and this would be this field section with align fields horizontally properties enabled. What this does, and is that you can control field alignment across columns by using this property, and it prevents fields in a multi-column field section from collapsing upwards when there's a gap due to differences in field heights. Fields will always remain horizontally aligned when their neighbors are in the same row. This might not be a good example because actually this is not that bad, but in real life, I have definitely used this at work, and it definitely looks much better than it did before. But no matter what you do on your Lightning pages, keep it consistent if you can. A consistent layout, consistent Lightning pages are going to be a really good, consistent user experience for your users. Let's say you might not be able to do this org-wide, but if you are delivering an implementation project from nothing to everything, or if you're taking on a project where you have to create 5, 6, 7 new custom objects, then you might want to consider, actually, are the users going to visit, those objects quite frequently, or are these just junction objects that, are going to be visible on related list layouts? Do I need to sort of pour some effort into what these pages look like? If you do, think about keeping the tab orders the same on those objects, or even go as far as what should be the default tab. What should my users see first when they arrive on that page? Very similarly, look at the actions that they would carry out on these pages, which is the buttons on the top. You can't have all the buttons the same during your whole org, I understand that. But if they're somewhat similar, then your users are not going to, again, saving clicks, and they don't have to fish for information if you put it right in front and center of them. And your common denominators, such as activity timeline, if you use Chatter or Slack, as I do here in Salesforce with Salesforce channels, if you put them sort of around the same region, if you use accordions in your org, put it around the same. If you hide them in some sort of tabs around the object, do that everywhere. So your users are getting used to it's in muscle memory, so they don't need to sort of fish, where is this again? Where do I need to look? Same with screen flow styles. If you work with admins or devs and they are building screen flows for you, the styling of those screen flows, and by that I mean, what font do we use on screen flow? How big the font should be? What should be the color of the text if the screen flow encounters an error, or if you want something from the user, all that sort of thing. So there's a lot that can go into it, that if we don't have an external designer to design for us, or an internal designer that designs internally for us, that is up to us to decide. And these are just a few things that we could keep in mind. Now, let's move on to our next topic in UX and UI in action, which is going to be about charts and color. No matter if you're writing stories about data visualization for an admin on Salesforce, or data teams or data consultants on Tableau, Power BI, or CRM Analytics, or you're building these yourself in Salesforce or in any of these other tools to demonstrate return on investment or user adoption after a successful project delivery, the Salesforce Lightning Design System is here to help us with best practices. I've got this all linked as well to my resources in the end, but I've just got a few to showcase. And again, these are all from the Lightning Design System. So this is what Salesforce Design System tells us is good when visualizing data for our users. And these are all going to be about presenting data the right way to our users to help them make educated decisions based on them. So the very first screen, we can see that we have got bar charts. So when you use these bar charts, do use 0 as the baseline to represent your data accurately, and avoid setting the baseline to any number other than 0. Staying with bar charts, do show ordinary data in an ascending or a descending order. Don't just pluck it on a chart and set it and forget it in a whatever order. If you use pie or donut charts, do use it to represent data between 2 and 5 values, but don't choose these charts if you have got more than 5. Again, what your users are going to do is they have to fish in for information. It's really not clear what I'm trying to represent with that many values in there. I have got 10 on there. Staying on pie and donut charts, Salesforce actually takes care of, Salesforce operational reports and dashboards takes care of this one for us, but if you use anything else, it might not be as straightforward. So do show data in a descending order, and you start at 12 o'clock and you move clockwise. I don't know which thing you see, so you just go clockwise. This is clockwise. And don't present data in a non-linear order on your pie charts. If we look at color is a really important tool for data visualization, for accessibility. They help to tell a story and guide the user through to view, alerts, outliers, take desired actions. If you want to go beyond this, you can have a look at the style guide that comes with Salesforce Lightning Design System 2. Lightning Design System 1 has got a style guide as well. So if you're staying on Lightning Design System 1, it has got the style guide as well. So feel free to refer back to it. These are just files on Figma that you can pretty easily use if you want to drill down more to color. And like if you're designing, for example, a button, how should a button behave? What should the hover color be? That sort of things. But whatever you do when you work with color, keep accessibility in mind to distinguish chart elements, use color-safe themes wherever possible, such as this one. Again, if you are staying on Salesforce operational reports and dashboards, you're in luck because, again, Salesforce done all this for us. And, as much as I personally, one of my favorite color themes is going to be, it has to be the watermelon. If you have a bit report, you know what I'm talking about. The theme that goes from red to like a dark green, but that's not user friendly, so I can't really use that on my dashboard. So 99.999% of the time, I'm always opting in for something that is color safe like this here. So let's take a look in color. And as you can see on this example as well, the Salesforce landing design system tells us that we need to use different colors to represent data in a pie chart and avoid using shades of the same color to represent data in the pie charts as well. Again, I'm much more easy to find information that I need in this chart than in here, although I quite like this, but it just looks good, but it's not very functional. If we move on to the bar charts, use a single color to represent all values if you compare them against the same value, and don't just use colors because it looks good. If we move on to line charts, do use a minimal color palette when you associate colors with numbers, and try and avoid using too many colors if you do that. That's just because Salesforce has got a research that they have. It's quite interesting. I have also got that linked, and that research shows that most people's short-term memory can retain up to 5 pieces of information at one time, making 5 a good maximum for color choices. So try not to use too many colors if you are on a line chart, because again, everything can just get lost in translation. Now, if we jump on from color and charts and dashboards, I'm going to show you one of my, I'm saying this about everything, but these are truly some of my favorite things that I love to talk about. Things that can be sometimes forgotten about / overlooked when it comes to Salesforce user experience and UI. And one of them is search layouts. And there's a really good reason why, if you think about it, why we don't think about search layout as much in Lightning experience anymore. And it's because thanks to Einstein Search, Einstein Search has been since forever now, I believe, so 4 or 5 years ago, since Einstein Search has become the default search experience in every Salesforce org. So we hit enter when we are searching in Salesforce much less than we used to do before, because Einstein gives us the information that we need right there and then underneath the global search bar. But if your users do hit enter and they are returned results, then what they're going to see is going to be your search layouts. And if the search layouts we present them is irrelevant to the job that they do, or what fields we utilize on those certain objects, then the user experience is kind of going to be, as you can see here. I haven't got the account site. Actually, this is from a dev org, and this is how it comes out of the box. None of these, I haven't created any of these myself. And when I search for edge communication opportunities, this field wasn't filled out, yet it's part of, for some reason, of the search layout. But after I went and changed this, and I've added on amount, for example, because let's say that's what my users were looking for, of course. I'm not assuming anything. I'm going to do some research. And I have found out that my users are looking for the amount when they search. Then I can really quickly add that field in. So again, what I have done, I have just saved some clicks for our users really easily, really quickly, without any much sort of effort. That's why I really like this feature. So if you are again building your next few objects, you deliver a few, and you think your users are going to be searching for those records in Salesforce, maybe test that yourself as well when you're in UAT. Hopefully you're going to remember that I told you to do it today. So going to have a look and you're going to realize, oh, I don't think this actually looks really good. And then, my job was done good. Let's move on to Picklists, especially Picklists and Picklists that values grow over time. And I'm sure you have worked with a Picklist. I certainly have, that you have inherited from other BAs, other admins, other devs. And sometimes they can look like this. I do love a logical order in my pick list. Sometimes it's not as clear what the logical order should be. I understand. Sometimes it's as easy as it is here, as alphabetical. But if you're working with a pick list, try and leave it in a better place than how you found it. If you see that the logical order, there's something not really good there, or the capitalization or the spelling, maybe just, correct that if you are already there. So, and again, your users and your stakeholders have okayed it. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be validation and error messages and any sort of instructional text that we give our users, given how they interact with the record on Salesforce. Whatever you do, if we display messages to our users, we should be concise and using as few words as possible. Also, we have to be direct and refer to the UI element by their literal names. If you have a call to action, then have that call to action, but you have to spell it out to the user. If you have got a button that says, I don't know, click submit, then you write that out. Click submit is going to be the next step. You don't say, then save the record. Call it out, how you can see it on the screen. Also be clear to prevent any sort of confusion and frustration, such as you can see it on the screen. On this side, I have a really cool and really clear instruction of the expiration date. Actually cannot be before the close date. Sorry, this is a validation rule error message. So I know exactly what I need to do. I need to look at the close date. I need to come back here and I need to amend this so that it's after the close date. Perfect, cool. Versus wrong expiration date. Thank you. No, that's just not good enough. Also, use please sparingly, only when asking the users to do something inconvenient or if the system is to blame. For example, this process may take a while. Please wait until it completes. Avoid using sorry. Only use sorry in error messages that will result in a serious problem for the user, data loss occurred, or the user must contact the admins for support, for example. And also don't use exclamation marks in error messages, confirmation messages, or instructional text. However, you might do, because that's what your brand is. All of this you need to take with a pinch of salt and try and apply. If you have got a marketing team and if you can find your company's brand guidelines, there's usually going to be a voice and tone section in there. And if you try and match your brand's voice and tone, what is projected outside and how your users know and feel the company, and you can translate that into a Salesforce experience, you can use those exclamation marks then, but if you do that, then what you're going to again achieve, and this is when your design thinking and your user-centered design comes in, users are going to feel just that more connected to Salesforce, to the systems that they use. Oh, actually, well, this was built for me. Yes, it has. So does the ketchup bottle, because it's just, we are human, we're building things for others, and this is where we all come in here. Now in the last section I want to look at how we can empower our users in real time. One of them would be, actually, Salesforce Ben released an article about exactly empowering your users in real time today. So if you want to learn more, I guess check them out. Key fields and guidance for success. This is the first thing that they talk about as well. If you haven't seen this before, this can be placed on a path on a Salesforce record on a landing page. And what you can do here is with key fields, as you can see here, you can help users know exactly what information they need to capture and when and which stage, because these fields can, not necessarily going to, but can change at each stage of a process. And with guidance to success on the other side, you can create really quick contextual tips right where they are working. You can also use in-app guidance. I love to use in-app guidance for change management myself. It is really good if you, small things as well, you just move the field from here down to here. Where did the field go? With in-app guidance, you're going to grab your user's hand and say, hello, look at this, it's just right here. Thank you. Again, we just solved some angry Slack messages from users. Where did that field go? It's just right there. Or if you had to redesign a landing page because it had some problems before, it wasn't optimized. Let's say it was too slow. So you put things in accordions, such as so you direct your users. By the way, if you're looking for this component, you just click here, open up that accordion, and you can find it right there. Or you can create full-on walkthroughs. If you released a new feature, you have released a brand new workflow to your users, a brand new product in Salesforce, then you can create walkthroughs which are going to be consisting of a series of 10 prompts that can be floating on the screen, or can be, as you can see on my example, it's just pointing to the actual thing that you are talking about, a field or a component on the page. The prompts can also be docked. I'm sure if you ever logged in to like a Salesforce playground or even a sandbox, you see this pop up when Salesforce tries to tell you something. We can do that to ourselves. And we can also insert videos in there as well. So, if you want to handhold a little bit more, then you can walk through your users there of how to use a new feature in a video that then you can dock just right in there as well. Consider using this for change management. I really like it, and I find it very useful. It also comes with like analytics features. So you can actually check it out and see it in real time of like who is using it, how many people pressed dismiss on it, It's really cool. Another really cool thing is the to-do list. It's one of those set it and forget it kind of things, because all it needs to be done, it just needs to be enabled, and your users needs to be told about it. And this to-do list is going to give them the ability to organize their tasks no matter where they are in Salesforce, because it is dogged onto the utility bar. So if on the apps that your Salesforce users use, you dock these in the utility bar to those apps, they can just bring these up wherever, again, one Chrome tab at a time, but they don't need to leave where they are if they want to access this. And it's highly customizable by the user, and no one else going to see those customization. And by customization, I mean these things here. If you can see the labels, they are called. The user creates these labels themselves. No one else can see them. And then they can apply these labels to their tasks the way they like it, and they can take it with them wherever they are. Talking about things that you take with yourself, this is for you Salesforce Sales Cloud using folks. You can take Sales Cloud with you everywhere with a feature called Sales Cloud Everywhere. So if you do enable this, what it's going to do is it's literally just a switch in setup for your admins, and then after users can download the Salesforce Chrome extension, the native Salesforce Chrome extension. When they log in, they're going to be greeted with this, as you can see here. By the way, this is much smaller about here. When you first open it, I just made it wider so you can show you better here today. And they can take that to-do list with them wherever they are on the web, the ones that they just created, and it takes their labels with them as well. So no matter where they are on the web, they have no excuses for not completing their tasks anymore. As you can see, I'm surfing LinkedIn, but at the same time, I'm also looking at, I need to send a quote really urgently, obviously. What it also can do, especially on LinkedIn as well, is that the Chrome extension can scrape the website and pre-fill some information on LinkedIn, from LinkedIn to a new lead, for example. Again, saving the users times when they're looking for their prospects, let's say. You can create contacts and accounts as well in the same way, not just leads, but I just wanted to show off leads for you. And then, of course, you can have a look and for your recent Salesforce records as well. Not just recent, but that's what the first list that they see. But if they drill down a little bit more, they can look at their opportunities, for example, their contacts, their leads. All of their Salesforce records are available here. And this is me, really. If you want a little bit more, you can scan that. Hopefully the QR code works. I haven't got that phone and me. If it doesn't, shout. I can send you the link itself. I tested it yesterday, so it should. On that link, you will find all the resources I have used to make this presentation. You can also find the IBM Enterprise Design Thinking course that I have talked about. I have also created a trail mix just about design. So if you want to take a look and do some extra trails, they're all quizzes, by the way. So because all these, same with the, all the BA trails, the designer trails are all just quizzes as well. But I still think some of them are actually really cool. There is one about writing style and tools that I really like. That one, I included that one too. And yeah, anything else? And yeah, add me on socials to continue the conversation. And I guess this is going to be Q&A time if we have got any questions.
Well, first we're going to pause and celebrate you. Thank you for coming onto our group and gracing us with all of your favorite things. I did have not Mary Poppins, Julie Andrews in my head. Be so few. Sorry. So I also I also wanted to note one that we met at London's Calling,
Yes.
and this is kind of how this session kind of came to be. Richard came to me enthusiastically talking about how much he loved business analysis and how important it was to his role, and how he was really passionate about all these things. And I was like, come speak to my group. And this is part of what this group is about. How can we elevate BA voices? And I'm glad that we were here to help elevate yours today, Richard. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm really thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
We do have questions.
That's really good.
First, is there a difference between UX and UI?
A UX is your user experience, and UI is going to be a user interface as such. So yes, there is. So can I go back to that slide? Hold on one sec. How do I? Oh, got it. There you go. So your UX is going to be using the bottle, and your UI is the label. If you want to look at it this way, if you wanted to look at it this way, if you want to look on Salesforce, UI is going to be the user interface that I'm interacting with, the things that I see, the buttons that I push, and my user experience is going to be the flow, that workflow itself, the process that I'm doing. Me converting a lead is going to be user experience because I need to do all sorts of different things to go from A to B. That is going to be a user experience.
Excellent. And
Or if I'm wrong, Vanessa, by the way.
Do they usually have different people for UI designers and UX designers, or is it usually the same person?
It's a really good question. I have not met a designer who wouldn't do both, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I haven't met a designer that wouldn't do both.
Only UI, please. All right. Do you have any specific metrics for B2B versus B2C scenarios?
That's a really good question. As in different metrics in...
And Manoj, if you want to unmute and clarify.
Yes, if you could.
Or throw it in the chat.
Yeah, or just throw it in the chat if you don't want to speak. That's absolutely fine as well. But if you talk about user-centered design when it comes to B2C or sort of like B2B, again, these are frameworks that you use. So user-centered design and design thinking are frameworks, and however you mold them, depending on who your user is or what is your target audience, that is going to be completely up to you. So I assume, yes, there would be some metrics if you want to looking at ROI, for example, in the end. I assume there would be some different metrics that you would look at, but the core principles are always going to be the same, no matter who your user is or who you're trying to build for.
How can you build user-centric design into projects that are being delivered with Scrum/Agile delivery? Do you include it in your user stories?
I always do. I do. Or if you have got your tech reviews, which, a tech review can be something like a Three Amigos, where you talk about the importance of user design there. Let's say you're building a screen flow, and in an ideal world, you will have a documentation page somewhere in your documentation database about standards that you use when you build screen flows. So you just quickly bring that up when you're talking about a screen flow ticket, let's say, how a designer will bring up if they design, something from to an external website, such as an LWC, they would bring up their own style guide. Because internally we do have style guides, but we are not, as designers, we're not going to bring up Figma and design there on the get-go, but you can have your documentation and sort of bring those up whenever you are talking about these. And when it comes to sprints, it's all about, again, iterating. The many times you iterate, sometimes things are going to get shipped that are shipped because they're MVP, they're your minimum viable product, but then you come back to it and you can iterate it on the next one.
Yeah. I'll also throw in, just from my own experience, because I've also struggled with this question. The things that I've done, 'cause it's really hard to remember to throw into my acceptance criteria. And and the list should be in alphabetical order. Like sometimes if I remember, I will do it. But I also want to make sure that design is just kind of incorporated in the fabric of the project. So part of when I was a product owner, I put it in the definition of done. So we did not consider something done until somebody who was responsible for just thinking of the UI and UX looked at it from that lens and said, okay, yes, somebody would want to use this thing. Because you can meet all the acceptance criteria from the developmental standpoint, but if nobody wants to use the thing, there's no point in building it. And so that's where I often say, like, don't throw the BA in the cave after they've done discovery. Like, BAs are really important during the build process. And part of that, where I think we can add value as user experience designers are throwing on that hat, is if we do the end-to-end testing at the end, we can look at what the experience was like for us. Of course, we know the acceptance criteria have been met. They passed QA, it passed whatever it did. But if you go through and you go, oh my God, but this field is here, and then I have to scroll down, and then the next field that I need is like all the way at the bottom of this thing, and it's not very clearly labeled. And knowing these types of little user design tricks are also really handy when you're doing that kind of end-to-end. Do I actually feel good when I'm writing this? Kind of work. The last thing I'll throw in, and again, this is when I've either been a PO or I've been a BA on a project. I know a lot of times, especially if you're consulting, you're pulling a team together kind of on, maybe you've never worked with them before. It's okay as a BA, honestly. Like, again, we want to talk about how do we increase our value as business analysts, and expanding our skill set beyond business analysis. I have a user experience and UI best practices by Vanessa Grant that is in my back pocket in my personal library. And every time I'm on a project, I go, hey, do we have any design standards? Do we have any configuration standards? Do we have any code standards? I have those in my back pocket. If we don't have them on a project, hey guys, how about this? Does this feel good to everybody? And that's how I try to inject it. And projects will, either end up better, or people will be like, nah, and then I cry, and then I'm sad, and then I'm like, next project. I'll get them next project. Sorry to steal your thunder on that one.
That is a really good example what you have just said. That is perfect.
All right. We have 3 more questions, and we're gonna go quick because I think we're running a little behind. Bringing in.
I was just talking.
Oh no, it's probably my fault from a big intro and being late. So, good. Bringing in cross-object fields like account. Wouldn't the user expect to see that at the top of the screen?
It will depend on your users, what they expect to see. If you do your research, you will do what is best for your users, what is best for that, specific Lightning page or that on that record type that is assigned to, for example. It will depend on your users that you're building that for, really.
Yeah, I've often found that even though it's not my preference, that sometimes users will get enthusiastically excited about something that I'm like, ugh, but okay.
Yes, exactly. I have had many of those. Actually, just a few weeks ago, I have a really good example for exactly what you just said of like, well, we like that there. No. And you put it somewhere onto the side and be like, really? Like, yeah. Because that's where the other, as you said, that's where the other fields are. So they don't have to scroll. Otherwise, they have to scroll. So, there you go.
All right. How can you be sure to be safe when you use a Chrome extension on a dev org?
Oh, that is a really good question. That is a really good question. And, I know it's a really hot topic right now. I know it's a really hot topic about Salesforce and connected apps and OAuth apps and, using Chrome extensions. How can you be sure using Chrome extensions? I'm not a dev, unfortunately, so I can't really fully answer the question for you. But most of the things that I have seen on LinkedIn in the past coming weeks was, either some sort of social engineering techniques that these bad actors try to use, or blatantly uploading something to the Google Chrome, web store, for example, that had a misspelling, and waiting for users to download them so they can extract your data from Salesforce. For example, the Salesforce extension that I just showed you, in the very, very end, that's in setup. So the link is in setup in Salesforce. So if you click there, you don't go to the Chrome Web Store by yourself. Salesforce is going to take you there. So if it's about the specific extension, then you're going to just go from there. Otherwise, good question. I will have to look that up, I think.
Speaking of the extension, is it available for all orgs or is it an add-on?
This extension Sales Cloud Everywhere would be for Sales Cloud, like orgs that have got Sales Cloud enabled.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Richard. Very much appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience and giving us an opportunity to talk about user experience design and UI and all your favorite things.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. And I hope everyone has got something to take away from today.
Including looking at our ketchup differently.
Yes.
All right. Back to I actually was, sorry, I didn't want to go all the way back there. Where was I? Okay, was it going? Yeah, this is where I want it to be. My bad. How do I, sorry.
Hold up, Vanessa, we need to look at that shirt. What does that say?
Oh, it says, have you tried trying?
Very nice.
Thank you. I lost my spot in my slide because I ended up adding a slide. So from current slide, there we go. Sorry, guys. Let me reshare here. Cool. So again, thank you to Richard. And I also wanted to throw in one of, I thought I had a, dang it. All right. I had it, but I lost it. I'll put it up on, for some reason it wasn't showing. There we go. Can everybody see this?
It's hidden if you look on the left side.
Oh my God. I can't use PowerPoint. I will edit this so that I'm less embarrassed on YouTube and just seem like I am a badass all the time. Okay, cool. This is one that I actually really love for user experience design as well, and this is kind of to the point of, what Richard and I were talking about, where sometimes like the user experience is sometimes different from, different perspectives. It's always important to consider perspectives, because your user might love something, you might be like, really? Okay. So certainly something to think about. But I did my first speaking session ever actually was on user experience design. I think it was user design debt or something like that. But anyway, let's talk about some news and opportunities, and then we will pause the recording or not pause. We're not going to record later, except next month. And then we will turn off the recording and have some spicy BA chat. I'm going to keep bringing this up every month. Certs and training. It's still free to the end of the year. This is a cert that's going to cost $200 next year. So if you have some time, go for it. But I am going to throw a caveat this month, which is I want you guys to consider the ROI on the time when you are studying for AI. I know I've been promoting this, hey, get your Agentforce certification, and I still think it's worthwhile. But there is so much going on with AI, and certainly some challenges around Agentforce. Like, let us be a realistic Trailblazer community group and acknowledge that Agentforce is it's not bad, but there's a lot out there. And so I want you guys to be thoughtful, and I guess that's my little rant here is, and I would love if folks would throw things in the chat about things that you are also studying in AI that is benefiting you as a Salesforce business analyst or a Salesforce admin. I know I was having a conversation with Brian Shea, and we were talking about N8N, and like I was talking to somebody else about how there's meetings every week for folks that are vibe coding on Bolt. I'm going to start my own vibe coding project just because I think that part of the future is, if I've been writing requirements for developers for most of my career, then why can't I try giving those directly to AI and seeing what happens? But while I think the Agentforce thing is worthwhile, at a certain point, I think there will be some diminishing returns. And I want you all to think about what could benefit me in my career, what will benefit my day-to-day as a business analyst, and also what other tools can I be more familiar with so that it'll widen my skill set so that I can be valuable? Because this job economy is changing. It's important to stay on top of things. And with that, I will end my rant. Also going to say next month, we are bringing in Laura Brandenburg. Her book is out, The Value-Driven Business Analyst, but she will join us on September 30th. And she is not a Salesforce specific BA, but certainly one of the resources that I leaned on very heavily in the beginning of my career when I was trying to learn what business analysis was. So hopefully we see you guys next month. Also, the news, there's 35 Salesforce certifications that are changing names. So maybe start updating those resumes. No action needed, no retakes needed, but if you're curious what's changing, there's a QR code. I also threw in from Salesforce Ben, like, we're Salesforce certified platform administrators now. Now, the business analyst one, as far as I could tell, is not changing, but there's a whole lot of different changes that are going on. So certainly make sure that you update those resumes, make sure you're updating language when you're talking about the certifications that you're doing. Everything looks like it got longer too, like goodness. So yes, throw Salesforce in front of everything. Now, let's see. These are a mouthful. It's almost as big as our group name. But hey, name changes. Important to know what our certifications are called. Anyways, calls for speakers. SoCal Dreamin' is still accepting, I guess, if they want to speak in 2 weeks in LA. If you're thinking about hitting Disneyland, come hang out with me. I'm not running it, but I'll be speaking at it. I think it's the last one I'm going to be speaking at this year. Mar Dreamin', True Blue Blazin' Melbourne, West Africa Dreamin', Mexico Dreamin', and French Touch Dreamin'. I thoroughly encourage folks wanting to talk about BA topics or really anything. Go out there, go make us proud. You want to come to speak to our group? Has Richard inspired you? Fill out the form. It's a quick Google form. Would love to have you guys join us. And with that, I'm going to say thanks to everybody on YouTube, but you're not invited to the after party. So bye, YouTube.